Not a good time for Erik ten Hag right now. This the result. United have lost consecutive Premier League matches without scoring at Old Trafford for the first time since November of 2021. Back then it was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in charge, and they were his last two home games in charge of Manchester United. You can't even see them in the top half of the table right now. Spurs are there in 8th as it stands right now, but that result leaves United in the bottom half of the table, and of course begs a lot more questions of what Erik ten Hag is building with this side. So let's hear what he had to say after the game.
What I saw in the first 30 minutes, that is below the level what we can expect from a Man United team. And even when you concede so early on in a game a goal, you should stay calm and control the game, control your performance, and just sticking together and stick to the plan, and then you will have a footnote in the game. And now we didn't got this, although we had our, as I said, we had our chances as well.
Do you think it was more psychological than tactical because of the early goal that Spurs scored?
I definitely. I saw this, that the players got very stressful after they conceded so quick a goal, and they made very bad decisions on the ball where we had some options to play over, and we should have done better this.
Julien Laurens joining us now, but let me start with you, Craig, because this was an awful...
What game was that from, that interview? was that today, a couple of weeks ago?
That was today. Was
it the Palace game? Was it the 20 game? Was it last season?
All the games of the last six months.
Look, before we get to the actual football match, what are Man United waiting for? What are they waiting for? The international break? An embarrassment in Porto? An embarrassment against Villa? What are they waiting for? We had this discussion last year. We said when they were embarrassed in the semi-final by Coventry and should have gone out, that this job now is too big for them. We said after they won the cup final, when people were getting carried away, said, can't sack old Erik now, he's won the cup final. We said, we'll be having this discussion about his job, about his team, within 3 months of the season starting. And here we are. Here we are. That was an appalling performance again, even before the idiotic Bruno Fernandes challenge, right? Appalling. Tottenham and by the way, we all called it. We all called it. Said Tottenham are going to go and outplay them. It's going to come down to whether Tottenham can be clinical in the final third. And if Timo Werner somehow had his shooting boots, his composure, it would have been 5 or 6. But listen, this job, he has lost his way so much in this job, it is frightening. What are Ineos and all those people behind the scenes doing here? They hit the iceberg last year, right? They hit the iceberg, it was there for them. Smashed into it, sinking. What they did was, they hit the reverse, they went back to hit it again just to see if it was as bad as they thought, and it is. In fact, it's worse. How can he survive? They are a dreadful, dreadful football team, and they have spent millions to be bad.
Jules, imagine if Son had played today. For Manchester United, is this their rock bottom, or can it actually get worse?
I think with them it can always get worse. I agree with Craig. I think they can go to Porto and lose on Thursday night, and then they can go to Villa on Sunday and lose again, and that's then the crisis will depend even more. And I mean, today was an embarrassment. Again, it's not the first time that we say it. Again, we repeat the same things over and over. We've done so for a month now. There's just no progression. They don't improve. There's nothing. There's no plan. There's no tactics. There's no structure. There's no ideas. There's no personality, no leadership, nothing. It's not all his fault because eventually the players are on the pitch. But coming from him, there's just nothing. He's not good enough. He hasn't been good enough. Even that first season, he won some games because his team had more individual talent than a lot of teams in the Premier League. But there's a point where it shows, and he exposed your limits as a coach, because when you see even Maresca at Chelsea with 1 million players, a lot of youth and a lot of injuries as well. Look at what he's doing compared to Erik ten Hag in his third season. He spent £600 million in his third season. This is what we see. This is what he gives the Old Trafford fans. And we saw all the big bosses were there today. Dave Resford, Dan Ashworth, everybody. They were as embarrassed as we were watching this game. It was really, really pathetic.
Shaka, those big bosses weren't convinced in the summer that somebody could do a better job than Erik ten Hag. How do they feel now?
They have to be convinced that nobody can do a worse job than Erik ten Hag at this point, in all honesty. Erik ten Hag is rewriting all the wrong records at Old Trafford. And that speaks volumes to, I think, how far Manchester United have fallen and how big the job is yet to come. And while Ten Hag, and for all his failings, just continue to blame injuries, and I'm going to guess the big bosses kind of fell for that. This was as strong a Manchester United team as he could put out. Maybe you have Højlund and Xerxes, but other than that, this was Manchester United's best 11, bar none, given all of Erik ten Hag's spending. And had Heung-min Son been in for Werner, they'd be 3-0 down in 40 minutes before Bruno Fernandes even gets himself sent off. So while I am sure over the next couple of days you will hear more and more about the Bruno Fernandes sending off and how that changed the game and how Manchester United were about to turn a corner and win this one, this game should have been well and truly over at that point. And in the end, the sending off just provided yet another excuse for Erik ten Hag for what is a desperately poor team. I'm with everybody here. I didn't think that they should have kept him after the FA Cup final. I think even less so now. And the question is just, where exactly is that rock bottom?
And to illustrate the point that other guys are making, if we get to the actual game, just analyzing this game, for the first 30 minutes, you would have thought that Spurs were playing with 18 players out on the field. It felt like Manchester United were short everywhere. That for every challenge that 2 and 3 Spurs players were about to make, there wasn't any Manchester United player. And if you don't believe me, just watch the Mickey van de Ven run. This is at the beginning of the game, by the way, in which you're at home. You're supposed to have intensity and character and urgency and the fight and the fans and Old Trafford. This guy grabs the ball 65, 70 yards away from his front goal, runs through the whole field, through the middle of the field, and everybody from Manchester United that was alongside him at one point were kind of like, yeah, we're not going to catch him. I'm not going to get on the way. There he goes, and there he goes. And then the league gets like, I'm going to catch him. No, you're not. And it's embarrassing to see a team that doesn't even know their responsibility to tackle a guy with the ball. And if I were to say that this is the first time that something like this happens, I would be incorrect. Because it actually happens regularly for Manchester United. And we'll blame the players. Of course, they carry a lot of the responsibility. But the messaging coming from the manager is one that now has lost any sort of credibility. To us, a long time ago, but to the players as well. And when you have that combination, you see performance like you saw today in the first 30 minutes in which there was one team on the field, and it wasn't Manchester United.
Under his tenure, let's look at the team and the squad. Under his tenure, and if I miss anybody, correct me. Anana's come in under his tenure. Mazraoui, De Ligt, Martinez, three of the back four. Dalot's a very good player, Portuguese international. Ugarte's come in under his tenure. Casemiro's come in under his tenure. Zirkzee's come under his tenure. Antony, he pushed for Antony. Oh my God, horrendous, 100 million down the drain. Mason Mount's come in under his tenure. Another one they pushed for, hasn't happened for him. It's his team. It's his team. 3 years. 3 years. Look at his opponent in the other dugout. Yeah, they've made a few changes to the squad. But boys, he made some changes to the way Tottenham play over the last 15 months. It is chalk and cheese what Postecoglou has done. They might not be successful, but it is evident what they work on. There is no evidence, and never has been, apart from the odd cup final when they scupper along and beat Newcastle in the Carabao Cup and somehow beat Man City, who were out on their feet in the cup final. Everything else pretty much in between a couple of Liverpool games, everything else has just got mediocrity written all over. And you know what the United fans do? Most of them, a few boos, they put their head in their hands and they traipse off to their house and go, Erik will get it right eventually. That's where they've fallen to. They're almost accepting this garbage. And that's what it is.
And to that point, Erik ten Hag is walking onto the field, into the stadium, and out of the stadium.
Applauding.
What are we applauding? I mean, I would be embarrassed. I would be head down, man, and let's go back to work because it's all that we can do. But you're applauding to who? What are you expecting an applaud from? And who are you giving an applause to? It doesn't make any sort of sense.
They've always thought, let's be honest, they don't trust the money man, Erik ten Hag, right? They don't, right? He's a sitting duck. That's been, unless you're a cheerleader and you can't see it, he's a sitting duck, right? But they've been bringing players in to suit him. And yet he's not going to be there in the long term. He's not. It's not going to happen. He's not going to turn it around. They're hopeless. He's absolutely gone, right? And yet they have continued to have a transfer strategy that works around the manager. What kind of strategy is that? To bring players in that a manager kind of wants. Like, you're not telling me another manager wants Man United wants Zirkzee. I'm not having it. Not having it. Maybe even Matthias de Ligt. His connection from Holland with him. But you look at de Ligt today again, I mean, he's struggling. He's struggling. These are players that are coming in under this manager because he wants them. And yet, mark my words, they're going to sack him. So then what's going to happen? They're going to have to go round in that circle again. It is bonkers. They should have done it in the summer and said, Dunsville, out, not good enough.
But Jules, after the game, Erik ten Hag insisted that he's actually not worried about being sacked. He also said it's not the time to talk about progress either.
I mean, I've said it many times on the show. His communication for me is maybe the gift that keeps on giving all the time, more than what we see on the pitch. Because we see it. He's not good. He's not a good manager. It's not happening for him. Okay, we're just waiting for him to get sacked. But it's all those lines that he comes up with, and that often winds me up. To be fair, sometimes I find them really funny, like this. Let's not talk about progress. We're not improving. Let's not talk about improving. Yeah, on Friday, so his pre-match press conference, he said, "I need more time." Mate, how long do you want more? What? We've given you. This is your third season. We've seen nothing from you. Maybe a little bit in the first season, and even the first season. Let's be honest, we gave you time because it was your first season. But how much longer do you want? What more do you want? What more money? More players? More time? Would you? I don't understand. His communication really cracks me up at times because I don't think he's helping himself. Really, I think he makes it worse by saying stupid things like this.
Managers that have made a huge impact at clubs with less resources in a much shorter space of time. Eddie Howe, Newcastle.
Unai
Emery, Villa, Postecoglou, Areola, Bournemouth. The list goes on. They've all changed and transformed these teams with a fraction of the budget. There is no excuse. And the United, it's not the ownership, it's Ineos and the people behind the scenes. They cannot sit in the boardroom and say, this can continue. They can't. And he's not worried about getting sacked because he's going to get a bucket load of cash. He'll move on, he'll get another job somewhere else. This job's too big for him. His job's too big for him. And Jules is right, his press conferences now, well, for the last, I'm going to say, the start of last season, are parody. Every single one of them when he has a bad result.
When it comes to which Premier League manager will be replaced next, he is topping the standings in that aspect. But when it comes to the next Manchester United manager odds, these are the names that we're seeing: Ruud van Nistelrooy, Gareth Southgate, Thomas Tuchel, Kieran McKenna, Graham Potter, Michael Carrick and Eddie Howe. Who do you like, Shaka?
Out of that list, Thomas Tuchel. Just kind of given his own accomplishments, and I know things didn't end well, go well at Bayern Munich, but given his successes at Chelsea in particular, that for me is probably.
We're going to go for Southgate, you know it, because he's got a friend. Well, listen, there is some sort of friendship. I don't know who. Jules will know better than me. So Dave Brailsford and one or two others, and Southgate was talked about before, and That's opening a can of worms. I don't know if it was Jules that said at the start of the season, I might be wrong, but somebody said Ruud van Nistelrooy was brought in not really as Erik ten Hag's choice, but as a club choice to maybe take up
Oggy said
was
that.
it Oggy?
Yeah.
To maybe take up the reins on an interim basis when they had to do what they knew they had to do in the summer, but really bottled it. And I just wonder if that's what they'll do in the meantime. Step forward, Mr. Van Nistelrooy, just hold the fort until we can make some sort of rational decision.
Let's say it's Thomas Tuchel, to your point, Shaq. Matthias de Ligt is sitting in the locker room going, no! No!
To that point, Ali, it's Thomas Tuchel with all these players that Erik ten Hag's brought in.
And Masraoui, no! No! Nah.
Well, he's going to come in, Tuchel, and go, right, don't want him.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just say, I don't know if it's Thomas Tuchel, but Thomas Tuchel should be embarrassed to be on a list with those other managers, really. He's a way better than most of all of those.
Jules, the manager list, who stands out to you? Well, who would you like to see there?
So on the back of Craig's point, Dan Ashworth, who is the big football supremo now at Manchester United, his friendship with Gareth Southgate goes back a long, long time. We're talking 10, 15 years where they've been best friends. That's where I think the link comes here. I think Dan Ashworth would have loved Gareth Southgate to be currently the Manchester United manager, but because he was with England at the Euros, this was difficult to happen, obviously. Now it's a very different story. Would Gareth Southgate come in at this stage when the team is 11th and clearly underperforming? I'm not sure. Thomas Tuchel is an interesting one because they spoke to him in the summer. He wanted the job. They were clearly keen. Otherwise, you don't travel and meet Thomas Tuchel if you're not thinking about giving him the job. You know, otherwise you just speak on Zoom and then that's it, and you say, okay, no, it's not for us. But the fact that there was an actual physical meeting between United and Thomas Tuchel, I think, tells you a lot how both parts were interested in the end. I think Tuchel, as we know, is a very demanding coach, and maybe United felt there was not the right time, but maybe now could be the right time. When you see how much Tuchel turned the fortune of Chelsea when he arrived mid-season, I think he could do easily the same with his team, even if Ale is right. Some of those United players won't be too happy if Tuchel arrives at Old Trafford. But there's some interesting names. I agree with Craig as well that Tuchel, but for me, is by far the best of them all. But he's not easy to work with. That's the thing. He would admit it himself. That doesn't mean that you can't work with him. It's just that he's a bit difficult because he's so demanding and he's got his own way. But to be fair, right now, anything. Shaka, Ali, Craig, UK, anybody.
That's where we are.
Ten Hag would do better.
But it's gone beyond embarrassing now, isn't it? Because it's not just isolated couple of bad performances. It's not. They had the worst ever Premier League season last year, I believe, was the start.
Well, this is joint worst ever start.
Yeah.
In
I
Premier League history
don't
for them.
appreciate the fact that when Jules said anything, mention us for it. Like, anything. We'll take anything.
That's rock bottom.
Can I get you to answer your own question at the top of the segment? What are they waiting for? When's it going to happen?
Are they waiting for one more embarrassing defeat? Porto and then Villa. Two good sides. They've been battered today by a side that plays good football in Tottenham. Could have been a lot worse. Should have been a lot worse. They have a captain in Bruno Fernandes who isn't playing well and makes stupid decisions. They had a centre-half last week who, in the Palace game, who should have been sent off, whether the independent panel said in England, a quango that I don't know why it even exists, said, oh no, the stamp from Martinez wasn't a red card, but we really don't want to see that kind of thing on the field. So you have a bunch of players making, senior players as well, making bad decisions. Look, we have an international break coming up. That's usually when the old sacking season sometimes happens. I don't want to see anybody get sacked from a job, but this is the business we're in. It's Man United. They're horrible. They're horrendous. They've been like that for a long time. He's the captain of the ship. He's been overseeing a lot of the transfers, and he puts the tactics together. So the buck stops with him. They might as well pull the trigger now and then just move on. Why wait any longer?
Could it already be decided? Could it already be decided in their minds?
That they're moving
like,
on.
what can he actually do in these next two games to convince him that he's the man to stay?
I really don't know. I I said after the FA Cup final that there was nothing in Ten Hag's body of work that season that warranted him having another season. But then he keeps his job, and then the extra year is triggered for some reason. Again, I don't even know why you do that, because let's be honest, nobody's coming to come and snatch Erik Ten Hag from under Manchester United's thumb. So a lot of those decisions, I just struggle to make any sense of, as to whether they've decided already or not. If they have, then do it. I don't know. I don't know what the delay is at this point. Probably better to get somebody in sooner rather than later, so they get a better idea of the squad, and they can start making plans for the January transfer window. I don't know. It just feels surreal that we're still here talking about Ten Hag, given the feelings we've witnessed.
And this is, I think, the reality of Manchester United. And it's amazing to think of it this way. The worst thing that could have happened to Manchester United for this season is having won the FA Cup last year. Because that justified the decision to keep Erik Ten Hag. And here we are, further down the line, but not any further in terms of the level of play of this team. And it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse.
They would have sacked him if they lost to Coventry, right? That was a couple of inches from an offside goal.
Yep.
Look, they've spent 1.25 billion to get a foothold in this club, Ineos. They've brought in Omar Barada, they've brought in Jason Wilcox, and they've brought in Dan Ashworth, right? And maybe there is this big picture, but thus far, they have shown themselves unable to make any better decisions than the previous incumbents, for all the reasons we talked about. They have still continued to sign players and spend money, a lot of money, on players that other managers probably won't want. That's not... Whether you bring in technical directors and chief executives and and consultants, it doesn't matter. When you're still making poor decisions on recruitment, it's going to have a longer lasting effect. So from that perspective, they have not thus far done any better than the previous incumbents, the Ed Woodwards, the Murtaughs, and all these guys. They're still making the same mistakes, and that's going to take, the more they make, the longer it's going to be to remedy those. Because players, you just can't get players out on a whim. They've got contracts, they're on big salaries, and more to the point, most other clubs don't want half these players.
Jules, let's get to the game. What did you think of Bruno Fernandes' red cards?
I thought it was never a red card. I won't lie. I mean, seeing it live, I didn't think it was. Seeing the replay straight away, I think you can see it's not. It's the side of his foot. Okay, it's a bit high, but it's not with the studs. It's not even touching that much Maddison, I think. And Maddison, by the way, was very quick to be on his feet. Played it well, but I thought VAR should have said something, and so certainly that the referee made a mistake, because it was a yellow for sure, because the way he impeded him, but never a red for me.
Bruno has said, obviously, it was a foul but not a red, and says that he took him with his ankle. And there has been a bit of a consensus that it was a harsh sending off.
All right. I thought it was, and I'll tell you why. It's not all about the consequences. He slipped, clearly, but he then raises the boot, the studs high, almost to the knee at one point, and then catches him just beneath it. He's a long, long way from the ball. A long, long way from the ball, and it was a very unnatural position to be in. He doesn't need to raise the right leg. And I think because it's as high as that, I think that's the bar for the red card. It's not the most egregious challenge I've ever seen, but it's nowhere near the ball.
But it could have been. It could have been an egregious challenge.
Yeah.
Because if indeed he catches the player, Maddison, straight on with the bottom of his shoes, which could have happened as Maddison is getting around Bruno Fernandes. I'm with Craig. I think the height of the challenge, even though there's a slip, there's still a situation in which I think Bruno Fernandes can control the height of the challenge. And he sticks his leg out there with no intent to play the ball whatsoever. And if Maddison's leg is actually on the ground at the time, it actually not only catches him on his knee, he's catching with the bottom of his shoes, and we're having a different conversation. So for me, it's not so much about the final result on the tackle on Maddison, it's the height of the challenge and what could have been in endangering the player.
For me, I thought it was soft. if the referee had given a yellow, I wouldn't have an issue with that. But seeing that, I've seen.
You were on the fence about 20 minutes ago.
Yeah,
with this. What fence are you on now?
No,
the yellow or the?
I think it's more yellow. I think it's more yellow. I'll say this though. I think we've seen soft challenges be given red for the last season and a half. That's kind of where the game is going. Although you're right, Lisandro Martinez's challenge last week against Palace was far worse. Yeah, that went unpunished somehow or the other. But for this one, I feel that because he doesn't catch him with his studs and he does make an effort to keep those studs down, I'll give him a yellow and walk away.
But more importantly, Shaq, don't give. You're under the cosh. You're not playing well.
Agreed.
Do not give. And he even though he slipped, just because you slip, it's not an automatic reaction that your right leg comes up in the air. He's thrown it up. Don't give the referee a choice
decision to make, correct.
And a decision to make.
What would you do, Kay? You show your outfit to that?
Yeah, show my outfit to that. See what I'm saying.
Well, it was just straight red.
Yeah, and I'm not supporting Manchester United today. There's no decision made over what the outfit was for today. I want to talk about Spurs, though, because even before the red card, they were superior throughout in this game. And as you're saying, once again, under Ange Postecoglou, we're just seeing great stuff from this side, or at least putting that effort in.
Well, we talked in the last few days when we were all giving our predictions that how the hell would Man United get control of the midfield? And there was a clear answer, they did not. You know, the way that they stepped in, the centre-half stepped in, you know, the movement of the midfield guys to get on the ball, the positions that they took up, how wide they make the pitch. And I actually thought Timo Werner, up until the final third, was as sharp as I've seen him. You just can't bottle composure. You can't sell and teach composure. And he just doesn't have it. If he was a finisher, he'd have had a hat-trick in this game, without a doubt. And he'd have set a couple up for others. But their movement is fantastic. And clearly, Van de Ven is just brilliant to watch. But they all take responsibility. They take responsibility in the ball, something United don't do. They all take responsibility. They cherish the ball. They don't want to give it away. And they created so many problems. They've done that to many teams last year and this year and haven't won games because they haven't finished it off. And for long periods today, that could have been the case. But they're getting their momentum. They're a very good side. And if they can become more clinical in the final third, they really have got a shot of finishing in the top four.
I have to imagine that managers in the past have tried this with Van de Ven, but I would love this guy to just run the sidelines. If they just put him out as a winger and just say, Mickey, just go, baby. Just go. Just run at these people. Because when he gets going, there's nobody that can keep up with him. And Manchester United thought that they had him about 3 or 4 times. To see Ugarte trying to run with Van de Ven was like, I'm coming. I'm not. Actually, no. You got him, Matthias. You got him. And obviously, nobody had him. To have that amount of speed, and he must be, as you have Romero right next to him as another center back, he must be amazing to play with because you know you can take some chances knowing full well that I can go and step to this ball because even if that ball gets playing behind me, this guy can cover the ground. And that allows Spurs and allows Postecoglou to actually take a step forward as a team. Why can we take a step forward? Because even if that ball goes beyond us, this guy can get to it before anybody else can.
Jules, your thoughts on what you saw from Spurs today?
Yeah, I thought especially with the ball, that's what, when they are at their best like this, and okay, the opposition was terrible, but when their plan A, which is the only plan, works, they're great, they're beautiful to watch. I love Kulusevski in a more central position, really, and for Postecoglou to have moved him inside. He was a bit higher up against Arsenal, for example. He was a little bit deeper at times. But today, it was too good for United, too good. I mean, Ugarte got yellow carded on a foul on him. I think Dalot as well. He was just unplayable at times. He scored a lovely second goal too, with far too much space. But Kulusevski was a massive problem for United today. And when they play like that, it's great. You can still see at times that they are left leaving themselves a bit exposed. And we saw the Garnacho volley on the post, for example, where they're all a bit over the place defensively. But that's normal because they just commit so many players forwards all the time. And to finish off with Ali's point, I mean, Van der Ven has played left back for the Netherlands, for example, because I think, okay, yeah, he's a big guy, but he's got that pace on the left. He's got a good left foot. He can play as a fullback as well, I think. But there's no faster centre back than him in the Premier League, and they're probably not many in Europe either. So he's a massive asset for Spurs.
Absolutely.